it's something that I've done so intensely for so long. It was nice to just kind of take a little bit of a break. And I've always wanted to do Ironmans. So then in the last kind of 5 to 6 months, that's kind of, I guess I'm turning 30. So it's like that joke of like, tell me you're turning 30. It's like you just make some sort of sport your personality. And that's essentially kind of what I did.
Welcome back to the show, everyone. This is Briggs, your host of Leave Average for Joe. It has been a whirlwind of a few weeks as I pivoted slightly with my social media outlets and how I wanted to reach the right individuals with my plethora of entrepreneurial endeavors. I decided to cancel my original Briggs & Co. profile and recreate, which is kicking me in the butt right now, but I think long term it is a good decision. Recreate profiles so that I have a difference and a separation between Briggs & Co., my dance consulting service, and I'm so excited is officially out in the universe, and we are getting some very grateful, aspiring performers working with us. And then I wanted to also create a separate page for Leave Average for Joe, the podcast show that you are listening to right now, that is simply just out to connect with individuals who are leading a life above average, whether it be through entrepreneurship, sports, entertainment, philosophy, or just in general, somebody that I think is making the world a better place. So in saying that, I'm super excited to also now have video attached to the podcast show. It was something that I've been wanting to do for a little while. I wanted to improve a few things before taking that leap. So here we are. Everything takes time. I know that there will be many pivots in the future with this show. We will hopefully continue to grow, but we can only do that if you share and spread the word. So if you can, please send this episode, if you enjoy it, to a friend, family member, colleague, maybe even share it on your socials if I can be so bold to ask that. And if you have any interest in connecting with us in the sense of Briggs & Co. Dance Consulting, head over to briggsandco.ca. There's also a page on that website where you can subscribe to the Friday newsletter. Every Friday I release this 3-minute read about 4 hot topics on business, arts, fitness/health. What's the other one? And philosophy. So without further ado, there was lots of updates there. There's so many ways that you can get in touch with me, with those on our team, and I am just so humbled and grateful for every chance that I get to connect with guests on this show.
Good. Yeah.
Okay, good. Good morning. I'm so sorry for my mess up. I really thought that it was 8 hours maybe behind. I don't even know.
It's all good. Don't worry. It's the other side of the world, so I always get confused with all the time differences and all that.
So am I catching you on a day off right now?
No. So I'll go to work I just got back from a run, and then I'll head to work for the day, and then yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so it's Friday morning now in Australia.
Yeah.
And it's Thursday at 3 p.m. in Alberta, Canada. Julian, that's how you pronounce your name, right?
Yeah. Or just Jules is fine.
Okay, Jules. I would love for, first and foremost, just to say thank you for coming on, for agreeing to do this. But I know that some listeners on my end won't know too much about you, so I'd love to just start each episode off with a brief introduction, kind of who you are, your background.
Yeah.
And then, taking us into the present a little bit. And I'll probably, knowing me, I'm like a shiny object human being, so I'll probably poke at you a little bit and ask some questions along the way. But yeah, no. So welcome to the show.
Yeah. Well, my name's Julian, but everyone just calls me Jules. I only get called my full name if I'm in trouble. So that's just usually my partner every now and then. Yeah, I guess let's see. So I grew up in Sydney, Australia, and I live on the Gold Coast in Queensland, Australia now. I actually come from a French-Italian background. So I went to school at a French school in Sydney before I went to a performing arts school. But yeah, I guess my biggest background is in kind of professional dancing, actually. So I was a ballroom and Latin American dancer. Still am to this day. So I've been doing that for about 20 years now. And yeah, that's taken me all over the world. I was, throughout my teens and all that, I competed at a pretty good level, I would say. So I'm going to travel the world with that. And then when I finish high school, or I don't even know what the equivalent is. What do you guys call high school?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, high
So
school as well?
high school's 10 to 12 for us.
Yeah, that's
I don't know
right.
if that's
Okay. Yeah.
yeah. Okay.
That's well, actually, high school
I
for us
just
is
feel
like
like
7 to 12, but yeah,
yeah, okay. Because
yeah,
we're both from the monarch, if you will.
yeah,
So I
yeah.
guess
There we go.
Canada and Australia would have similarities.
Yeah. But yeah. So then, when I was about 17, oh sorry, when I was 18, I moved to New York for my first professional contract. Um, and then basically from then till about, well, I don't know, the age of like 22, 23, I was just, dancing was like my full time occupation. And then came back to Sydney when I was about 21, 22, got my bachelor, got a double bachelor's degree in sports science and exercise physiology. And then after that, went back to dancing for a little bit. And then now I do kind of, I guess you would say, like a hybrid mix of everything. So I work professionally as an exercise physiologist, and at the moment I specialize in age and disability care. And then on top of that, I still tour with, different dance companies. So last year, I didn't actually work that much as an exercise physiologist because I toured for basically 9 months of the year around Australia and New Zealand. Just, yeah, dancing.
That's who? With what company?
It's a company called Burn the Floor. So they're like I guess pretty well known in the ballroom and Latin world. And then recently, over the last kind of, I guess, 6 months or so, I took a little bit of a step away from dancing. It's something that I've done so intensely for so long. It was nice to just kind of take a little bit of a break. And I've always wanted to do Ironmans. So then in the last kind of 5 to 6 months, that's kind of, I guess I'm turning 30. So it's like that joke of like, tell me you're turning 30, it's like you just make some sort of sport your personality. And that's essentially kind of what I did. So I just went all in on kind of triathlon and Ironmans, and it was so cool because my fiance did it as well. And she's actually probably the better athlete out of the two of us. So it was so cool. We just went on this journey together. And then, yeah, I've completed 2 half Ironmans in the last 5 weeks. And then, yeah, and then
My gosh.
yeah, so which was pretty cool, pretty fun. But then, yeah, that's, I
Yeah.
guess, a real quick recap of like kind of my background and then what I'm doing at the moment.
Okay, I have so many questions. First, congratulations on 2 half Ironmans in 5 weeks. I can't believe that. I want to know a little bit more about the dance in Australia because most of the show's listeners, a lot of them will be of dance background because I'm a professional dancer. And so lots of my following is that. And I know that a lot of my following comes from the States and Canada. Because I used to dance a lot on cruise ships, I have some of my best friends are from Australia. So I also know that there's a few of them listening, but I will say it feels a little bit kind of out of my world, at least, how Australia works in terms of its dance industry there. I remember talking to a few of my friends on the ships and their stories from where they started on Australia to get to where they were, like in Miami, training for their first contract. It's actually quite outstanding to hear their journey because I feel like sometimes, and I don't even want to say underdog or anything like that because I think that's like not even the case anymore. Maybe it never was, but there is just such like grit, determination, and pure talent that comes from Australia. I think a lot in the entertainment industry. But can you just speak to a little bit about like is it the same you enter into a competition studio and I know that yours is like Latin ballroom dance more specific, but are you kind of just entered into a studio at a young age and it's a competition sort of style and you train and you go to competitions and then you kind of network along the way or how does
Yeah, I guess obviously like Latin and ballroom is kind of has a different pathway to your kind of jazz commercial or ballet world. Like it is very much, you grow up kind of really, it's all about competition. Like even as in terms of like a career, like I never thought that I would end up doing more stage work and more TV work. Like when I first started dancing, it was all about just competing and being Australian champion, Asian champion, all that kind of stuff. And so, yeah, when I first started dancing, I was about 10 years old. And I just started in a small studio. I actually kind of got guilted into it by my mum.
I was
But
gonna say, how did you end up there?
yeah,
Was that
well,
your mom that went?
yeah, so my grandparents used to dance together. And then my mum was always a dancer. Like she just loved dancing. And when I was 10, she was just like, "Hey, would you please like go try this class?" And I was like, you know what, whatever, I'll give it a crack. And I wasn't like a super popular kid, I would say. I was a little bit awkward, a little bit round, and yeah, when I got there, it was like I think two boys in a class of like 30, and I was like, these
Yep.
are these are better odds for
Yeah.
me. Um, and then, and then it was, to be honest, I kind of always kind of danced, but up until the age of about 16, it was always
Hear you for some reason. I can see you better.
all good. Okay, sorry about that. I don't know what happened. All right, easy. So when I was 17, so in my last year of school, I did So You Think You Can Dance, um, which was like a TV show I always wanted to be on. I kind of grew up watching the version from the States, so it was pretty cool to kind of get to do that. I didn't get to the live show, so I got to the top 40, which is like the kind of stage just before the
Okay, can
live
I
shows.
ask you a few things? I want to pause and
Yeah,
ask you about this
go go go.
experience. Latin, now this is where I'm like, how to connect the dots. In my world, at least, Latin dance, ballroom dance is very much not in the same world as competition dance, if you will. Obviously, those worlds start to collide once you start to explore professional dance. But at what point did you train in other technical elements of dance? Did you train in like ballet, jazz, hip hop, and anything like that so that you could start to make that segue into shows like So You Think You Can Dance? Like, because So You Think it sounds like was on your radar. At what point did you start to like actually think about this as a career?
Well, because I went to a performing arts school for basically year
Okay.
7 to year 12, I had some exposure, I guess, to ballet and contemporary from about the age of from year 7 to kind of year 9. And then after that, I kind of just decided to really focus more on the Latin and ballroom. But I don't know, I've always kind of been that a little bit versatile sort of a dancer. So it's one of my kind of key strengths is that I've always been able to kind of pick up choreo quite well. And then I really always enjoy kind of doing different styles. But to be honest, it wasn't until So You Think You Can Dance came out of absolutely nowhere. So I was 17, I was just focusing on school. And then they actually didn't have enough kind of Latin and ballroom dancers that had auditioned for the show. So then they actually like reached out and said, like, one of my friends was, one of my old teachers, was friends with the producer, and they said, "Oh, look, do you have any students that would want to come and be a part of it?" So then I went there, and that was when I actually got really exposed to other styles like hip hop, whatever, commercial dancing, all that stuff. And then I really got a taste for it. And once I finished the show, that was when I kind of started doing it a bit more regularly, to the
Did you
point
make
when,
good connections on the show? Did you make like
um,
strong
yeah,
like
so
friendships and stuff like that?
yeah, like when I was in the show, and I guess when I met kind of the Australian dance industry is not massive, in the sense that there's not 100 million jobs. Like there's a lot of dancers, but
Totally.
in terms of
They're
professional
all
working
fighting for the
dancers,
one
it's
job.
exactly, there's not that many. So I actually got introduced to basically everyone that I would then be kind of working with for the next kind of 5 to 10 years across different gigs, and that's kind of how we all met. So that was pretty nice. But actually, that's how I got one of the ways that I got Burn the Floor, because one of the one of the main choreographers was Jason Gilkinson, who is pretty well renowned choreographer. He's won Emmys and all that. He's the creative director for Strictly Come Dancing over in the UK as well. Anyways, so he was one of the judges, and then when I then got put forward for Burn the Floor, it was kind of made the whole process a little bit easier. And then after I finished So You Think You Can Dance, I finished school, and then 3 months later, I was off to New York, and then Burn the Floor has a few contracts on cruise ships, so then I did cruise ships for a little bit as well.
Was
But
that
yeah, no, I made some really.
RWS? Was it
It's with
RWS? Is that
Norwegian.
Norwegian? Okay, but
Yeah,
they don't contract you out like RWS does?
I'm not too sure.
Like
We just
like
yeah we
so
just
were your shows learnt somewhere with Norwegian and then you went on board for like 9 months, or were you kind of just like you had your stack of shows and they brought you in as a group to perform for
yeah.
a few?
So I guess Burner Floor runs a little bit differently because it's its own kind of company, and so it doesn't
Yeah,
necessarily have the same cast for 9 months. Like we may have,
yeah.
every kind of it could be every 4 weeks, it could be 12 weeks, like 2 dancers will leave and 2 new dancers will come in like that. And it kind of just keeps rolling like that.
Yeah.
But my first experience, I went to Tampa, I went to the Norwegian studios in Tampa and rehearsed there for a bit before I went on the I went on the ship for 6 months. And then I actually didn't go back to the cruise ships. I actually left. So I joined this kind of, I don't know, a little bit interesting, but so I joined Burn the Floor when I was 18. It was my first kind of professional contract experience in a stage, like in a big stage show. I'd done other like smaller theater shows, but this was my first kind of, let's say, big show. But then when I finished my contract, I don't know, the whole time that I was there, like I was 18, the youngest person after that was 23. I just felt like I was really out of my depth, even from a, professional and dancing point of view. Like I kind of struggled with my mental health. I felt like I wasn't good enough to be there. I felt like I didn't have the skills to be there. And I just questioned myself a lot. So then when I actually finished my first contract, I made the decision not to go back. And I actually went back to the competing and the competitive world because I felt like I just had more work to do on myself as a dancer and as a person. And I made myself a promise that I would only ever go back to kind of Burn the Floor or a big show when I felt confident enough that I could kind of stand my ground and be like, yeah, I deserve to be here. And I'm good enough to do this. And so I went back to competition, which was honestly the best thing ever. I started dancing with this girl called Lily Cornish, who's like pretty much like my best friend now. We danced together for years, and then like we still dance together on Burn the Floor now. Like it's been 10 years and we still do shows together. And yeah, so if I hadn't gone back, I never would have met her, and my life would not be better off. So, and then, I kept doing that till about 22, 23, and then went back to Burn the Floor. And then from there, I've kind of just been kind of doing Burn the Floor on and off ever since. Yeah, exactly. But when I went back, I had achieved all the things that I wanted to. I felt sure about myself, like not just as a dancer, but like as a person as well. I felt like I was able to stand my ground a bit more. I'd done the work. I really trained on my technique. Because at the end of the day, if you don't have the foundations, you can try and you can always fake it till you make it to a certain extent. But unless you kind of know where you're coming from, what your foundations are, then you're always going to get found out in the end.
God, I actually that came to my head last week. I was doing something for my company and I had to take a step back and realize I need to do some groundwork. So what I'm trying to say before it's like, what's your point, Briggs? Is this is so applicable to dance specifically, but it's also applicable to other areas in life. Like sometimes I think
for sure,
you set these goals or you get yourself into these rooms, and if you don't have that foundation work laid out, strong, then there's some cracks in the foundation and it will be found out, exactly like you said.
definitely.
Sooner or later, it will. And so it's so important, and I want to tip my hat off to you for acknowledging that, because I actually don't know who would ever stop themselves in the middle of a professional contract and be like, I'm feeling a certain way right now, and I never want to feel this way again. So what do I need to do personally on a personal level to make sure I never feel this way again? And then have that strength, that confidence behind me, so that when I get into this, when I have this opportunity come my way, I feel so ready for it. I think that that's a really good life lesson in general.
For sure. And that's something, when I'm teaching, I tell my students, I teach we call it full-time here. So basically when, you finish high school, you can do a year or 2 years of basically intensive dance. And I see everyone there, they're so eager, they're young, they're hungry, all they want to do is start working. They just want to get in a show, and just start. But, it's not how it used to be where at 30, that's it, your career was done. If you look after yourself properly these days, you eat right, you train right, you do all the right things, you can have a really long career. And so I try and tell everyone, don't rush. Once you
Don't rush.
take the time, work on the things you need to, because once you get into it, you don't have time. If you're on tour, you don't have time to start working on things or to work on yourself, or if you're on tour and you're having troubles with your cast, or, you're having difficulties in general, if you're not mentally, if your mental health or your mind is not, solid, you're not going to fix that when you're, I don't know, on the other side of the world by yourself, away from everything that makes you feel good or makes you feel like yourself. You need to kind of have those strategies. And so, I always kind of say, make sure you take your time, know who you are as a person, and like knuckle down, and then the rest will come. Like, just be sure about yourself before you go off, because physically, like with dance, I feel like the physical act of dance is the easiest part. It's everything else that goes on around it, right? Because people say it's like an art form and
You're
everything, but it's
so
really
right.
competitive. Like, it's really
Well,
cutthroat.
you're
It's
your
really
own,
competitive. Like when I was,
yeah, you're your own individual. So it's a team sport, but it's also a solo sport. It's also a company. You have to represent
for
yourself,
sure.
but then you're also contracted with a company, so then you're also representing a larger organization. And then maybe you have a character, a name that you're supposed to play, like whatever it is. So there's like so many elements. So if you don't know who you are, like as Briggs or as Julian, like first, then that world is going to spin you around and around and around, and you're going to lose, so like you're going to lose touch with yourself. And then when life pauses because your contract ended or something like that, you're going to hit this low like you've never experienced before. And I think that that happens
Yeah.
to a lot of people if they don't slow down, like you're saying, and just like take a minute and figure out themselves first. Not also attaching themselves to like, I am only successful if I am a working dancer or whatever it is, or if I'm on a contract. I think like having your own confidence to be like, no, when the jobs come, they're the jobs that are for me because I've worked hard to get them. I've met the right people. I've been genuinely kind, all of that stuff. Because I think when you get jobs that are not genuine, like aligned with who you are, there's always going to be like a misfiring somewhere. You're not going to feel good with the people in the same room because it's just not authentic to you. And I think that that is maybe sometimes easier said than done, because in this industry, like you're saying, it's very competitive. So when a job comes up and you're available, you're like, sign me up. Like, especially when you're starting out, it's just like, I'll take anything, you know? But I think that you've got to be able to go like, okay, now I don't need to take anything. I'm going to actually put myself in rooms where I genuinely feel like it's aligned with who I am from a talent perspective, but also from like a character perspective. Who is the director? Who is the producer? Who is the choreographer? Do I actually like, you know, them as a human being as well as their work? Is it going to align with me? And anyways, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, but I think there's just so much there that dancers, because I know so many listen to this,
Yeah,
should
definitely.
hear.
I guess one of the things that I wanted to, I guess, get better at was taking on feedback as well, you know? And I guess the way feedback is delivered has changed a lot over the last kind of, especially 10 years from when I started working professionally to now. But, like when I, first started working professionally, it definitely wasn't the more kind of censored care approach that, you get these days. It was a bit more
Yeah.
brutal, but you kind of just have to, I remember when I think I was 22 or something, like I got told that I would be nothing more than just a pretty face. That
A
was,
hundred
what was said to me,
percent.
and I just had to
The
take it on the chin and just
brutality
keep
of it.
going, you know? And like, obviously I don't, well, who knows, obviously it is still a bit like that in some parts, but I think it is where the industry has moved forward in a lot of ways. But, it's having that self-worth that's not dependent on what someone else says. Obviously you still need to be able to take feedback on, because if your choreographer, your director, is giving you a note, like you need to apply that. At the end of the day, like you're an employee as much as you're an artist and all that. You're under their guidance, like you're trying to create their vision, right? But you also need to know your own worth. And so
Yeah.
I remember when I got told that, I was so upset. I was like, you know what, like, yeah, whatever. I'm a pretty face. I'll take it. Whatever. Let's just move on.
Yeah.
And I know I'm
Thank
more than
you.
that, so let's just keep it going.
100%. We all have those
Yeah,
moments, like those memories,
I
those.
think at the time that's what I said.
Well, and I remember, like, I'll never actually forget. It was a quick, like, one-off comment, but one of my like many auditions. It was a brush by comment from somebody in the audition room, but they're like, yeah, they clearly have a figure that they're casting for, and you're just a little bit over, like, you're not as thin as they're looking for. And it's so like, I think sometimes even thinking back on it, I'm like, I don't think they meant harm by that. I think it's actual just like, factual. So knowing knowing the industry now, I guess, I wish I knew that it is so cut and dry sometimes. Like casting is looking for a specific type or whatever it is. So like to just also not take things too personally either, because that side comment sent me like
100%.
into a deep spiral for many years. It was just like in the back of my head that I had this like look, and I
Yeah.
wasn't the look that so many people are looking for. So there's so
Yeah,
many like,
definitely. And you know, if it was, for example, like if it was a corporate job, you know, they would say, "Oh, sorry, you're not the sort of, you know, you're not the type of worker that we're looking for, or we're not sure that you would fit the team or culture or that sort of thing." They're not personal attacks, but because obviously with dance, like we use our body, like we put so much of ourselves, you know, out there that if you then get that rejection, it's like you take it very personally. But it's about, you know, you got to just, you know what, the more rejection you get, the better you get at taking it, really. So, and
so
you're gonna get it
true.
no matter what. I think you just got to get better at taking it on and knowing that, like, yeah, sure, this wasn't meant for me, but that means, you know, something else that's even better is going to come around the corner. I just have to keep trying.
Yeah. And I think that the pivotal moment there is like not keep trying or keep trying. And I think a lot of people, and this is like, trust me, I completely understand why people do this, but a lot of people get that no, get the second no, maybe get the third no, and they're like, yeah, never mind, I'm going to do something else. And that's totally fair. But I truly do believe that if you can just keep working at yourself and find something that you can stay grounded in, whether it might be education, it might be another job in a different type of industry, whatever it is, but you still have your eyes set on becoming a professional performer in one way or another, it will come. Like the amount of no's that you get by far outweigh the yeses in this industry. And I think a lot of the times we see a lot of highlight reels of people's careers. So we think that a lot of people get a lot more yeses than we do, but that's not the case. And so it's just like, it's on you to see past the no's, all of the no's, because they're so popular, and be able to like stay on your train tracks. I do want to take this opportunity to just like segue into kind of the chapter, I guess, of your life, what you think the benefits are in going to school and getting a degree, and then balancing, you know, your personal, your career, your education as you started to like get older and see kind of how your life is developing.
Yeah. Well, I think education is super important. Like I always wanted to go to uni. I always wanted to kind of further my education. I think I've always been probably slightly different to a lot of the dancers out there, where I actually didn't see I still don't see my long-term future in dancing. I love dancing myself, but I never wanted to open my own studio. You know, I love choreography, but I don't know if it's something that I want to do for the rest of my life. Like I've always kind of had interests outside of dancing. And for me, just as a person in general, like I'm kind of someone who always has to have a few things going on. And that's just how my brain works. I like doing different things. It makes everything kind of feel fresh for me. If I just do one thing all the time, I just get a little bit kind of bored. And so, and also to be fair, like my parents and my family have always been super supportive, but they also always kind of pushed for me to have some sort of backup plan as well. You know, my mom and dad would always say, "What if you get an injury and you can't dance anymore? Like, what happens then?" And to be honest, I'm knock on wood, I haven't had any terrible injuries, but I've seen some friends that have kind of gone all in on dance and have no, you know, all they do is live and breathe dancing, and then, you know, they've had to get a hip replacement and haven't been able to work for like 9 months, and then they've got no, you know, nothing else. And you know, I've kind of helped them in terms of like figuring out other skills that they can use.
Yeah.
But actually, I've always had a passion for fitness and movement and you know, all of that. And originally, when I finished school, I was going to do paramedicine, so become a paramedic. But then I ended up taking a couple of years. I took 3 years off school after school, because just to kind of figure out. Well, actually, I wanted to give dancing a red hot go, and then just start uni when I felt the time was right. And then I found this double degree, so sports science and exercise physiology, which I'd already done my certifications to be a personal trainer. So I was already working as a personal trainer. And then this was kind of taking it that next step further. And then, to be honest, even with dancing, I was like, you know what, like having a better understanding of how my body works is going to, you know, be able to like help me in terms of, you know, not just the longevity, but like fueling all of that, which is going to make me a better dancer, you know, in the long term, especially in terms of at the moment, I guess with exercise physiology, the injury rehab knowledge that I have now, and even injury prevention, injury management as well when we're on tour. And, you know, how I can, manipulate my body for a certain goal. Uni was great. Really, in hindsight, like I really loved it. I loved learning. It was so great. And even now, it's always also, and it's also in a way kind of liberating having that degree, because I know that no matter what happens in my life, I will always have this degree to fall back onto. Like I'll always find work. And so it kind of liberates you in a way to kind of just go all in and just like give it a red hot go.
Yeah.
But yeah, look, everyone is different. But I just think I think everyone should really kind of pursue some sort of outside education that furthers them, because you learn a lot about yourself, but also, it's just good to have a backup plan. You never know what's going to happen out there. And, it's just good to have other skills, really, other than, like, dancing is amazing and I love it. But it's, for me, this might just be me. I've never wanted it to define me. I've never wanted to just be the dancer. Like, I've always wanted to have other skills and other things that I can fall back onto, and other things to define me as well.
I also, like, from my perspective, because I feel like I'm similar in the sense that I'm a type of person that likes a lot of things going on, keeps things fresh. Like you said, that's a really good way to put that. I went to school as well. I got a degree. I started companies, and now I have the podcast, and I feel like you have to figure out what is good for you and how you balance your scales, because we all have a different scale, and it all has to be balanced in a different way depending on what we need. And so I also I'm genuinely a curious human being. So I've recently trained for some triathlons and longer distance running, like marathons.
Awesome.
I had come across your page when I was starting to do triathlon training, because you were starting to do Ironman training. And in my head, I'm like, I'll probably do an Ironman, and I hate even vocalizing that, because I'm like, oh God, that's gonna be now that I said it out loud. But and then it was like, whoa, he has a background in dance, and that's how this like whole sparks kind of popped off in my head, because there's people out there that I sometimes think we're so unique in our ways, and then that's great, but I also, like, we're human beings. There's only we operate in very similar manners, and I think that as much as we feel like we're very much individuals, we are also bred to be a part of groups and humanity and cultures and like all of this stuff. So I think that in your point to say that you don't want to just be known as like a dancer, I do think that from bird's eye view now, where I am in my career, I think we can be so wrapped up in these titles, in these like, I am a dancer, I eat, sleep, breathe, dance, and if you don't, then you're not going to get, like, I just think like if everyone could just take a big exhale and just be like, oh, I'm a human being and I like to dance. And I'm doing it as a profession right now. I don't know if I'm going to do it in 5 years as a profession, but I'm just doing it right now. And I like that you say, like, I was just going to give it a red hot go before I did my university degree. Like, and it can just be as simple as that. We don't have to apply so much pressure on these things. So I really like appreciate the way that you laid that out, and the way that you've kind of gone about your own individual, I say career, but it's really just life. Like, at the end of the day, we're just doing life. These are things that we're doing.
Fun.
Yeah,
I just like to have fun, and I've always done things slightly differently. Yeah, I've always done something slightly different. Like, I even remember once, like, I had a soccer game, and I went straight from a soccer game to like a dance rehearsal, and I rocked up like covered in mud, and I had to like have a wet wipe shower before I started rehearsals, and like that's just always been me. Someone made a joke, like, I went, like, even when I was doing dance, like, I've done Dancing with the Stars in Australia a few times, and I remember, like, I'd come to like a recording set, and people would be like, "Oh, I've come from footy boots straight into sequence," So I've just always done a bit of everything, and it's great because I've been part of different worlds, and I'll be hanging out with my mates playing football on the weekend, and then straight after that I go to like shaking everything to like some sort of music, so
there's so many things that like you're saying that remind me of my friends from the ships. You guys say what you had just said to me was easy, and I think he used to say it as well. But easy, there's like other sayings. There's easy, which means, I think, like for Canadians at least, is like no worries, like no problem kind of thing, like don't sweat
easy
it.
As. Yeah, that's why we say easy as.
And then you just said footy boots, and I don't know what that is.
Oh, right. So like you'd have like a football like shoe. So like I guess maybe you guys call them.
For you guys, is that soccer? Or is that football, like Canadian and US football?
Yeah, I mean, I call soccer football
Okay,
just because of like
okay,
my
okay.
European lineage. But yeah, we would like it can be rugby, but it's all the same shoe. So it's like, I don't know if you guys would call it like a cleat, like a shoe with the studs on it. Yeah, so that's a footy
Okay,
boot.
noted.
Like, we don't like long words. We shorten everything down.
To digress just a little bit, I want to ask you about maybe what a typical day in your life looks like, because I'm sort of selfishly curious about your Ironman training. If there's a pause on that right now and you're thinking about switching gears, what got you into, I guess, no, what interests you the most about the Ironman training and what you see with that kind of for the future? So let me backtrack. Day in the life, because you have to balance the Ironman training, which I know is like I like the thing that's going on right now, which is like my 5 to 9 before my 9 to 5, because it's so true. When you're Ironman training,
Yeah.
it's like, oh my god.
Yep. Well, I guess at the moment I've just raced, so like my day in my life right now is slightly different. But like for example, today, I was up at 4:20. I'm usually up, and then I'll usually do some sort of training session from 5 to anywhere to like between 7 and 8, depending on how long it is. So that's usually like a run, bike, or swim. And then after that, I normally start work around 8:30, 8:45, and then I work like a normal 9 to 5 job. So I'm
See,
out on the road.
5 to 9 before 9 to 5.
Exactly right. So at the moment, I'm working as a mobile provider in the age and disability sector. So I go around to different people's homes and I help them with their like physical rehabilitation. So I'll do
Wow.
that from 9 to 5. Clock off.
Is that your own business, or
I
are you
work
with
for
a
a
company?
company. Yeah, I
Okay.
work for a company. Yeah. And then I usually clock off around 5:30, and then it'll be more training. So usually I'll train twice a day. So then whatever I haven't done in the morning. So if I normally say if I'm doing a bike in the morning, I'll swim in the afternoon. Or if I'm running in the morning, then I'll do my weights in the afternoon. And then I'm back home by hopefully I try and do my longer sessions in the morning so that I can, spend a bit more time with my fiance at night. And we can kind of catch up. And then obviously like cook dinner and then try to be in bed at the latest by like 9 o'clock just to rinse and repeat. But yeah, it's pretty crazy like how like when I look back on it now, I would go for like a 2.5 hour ride before 8 a.m. on a Wednesday, or like when I was finishing off my training block, I ran a half marathon before like 7 a.m. and then went and worked a full day and then went and swam in the afternoon. Like, and that was just like a normal Friday. Like it's pretty kind of crazy the volumes that you hit. But yeah, even today, like today I ran this morning. I have a run club and I did a little bit extra, but yeah, we ran from like 5 till just after 6. I'll do this, I'll go to work, and then around 4:30, 5 o'clock, I'll go hit the gym with some friends, and that'll be my day.
It fills your cup up, right? Like, it's not like, I think sometimes it's like, wow, good. Like, some people say, like, how do you do that? So insane. And it is insane, actually, when you think about it. And it's uh crazy to think what your body is actually capable of when you put your mind to it, because you think you've got limits, and then you pass that limit and you're like, wait, what is my actual limit? Because I thought my limit
Yeah,
was that. But you obviously enjoy it, and I feel like it's like
yeah.
captivating you right now.
I've always, even before I started the Ironman, journey this year, I was always like, regardless, I would still train, do something in the morning, do something in the afternoon. Like, if anything, it just wasn't always about like structured training. Like, movement is just how I enjoy myself, how I express myself. So, it would just be like going for a nice walk in the morning with my partner, or like going for a walk with friends, or like, for example, like now that I'm not, that I've finished my race and I'm just chilling out a little bit. Like yesterday afternoon, I just went and played pickle with my friends. Like, it's like it's still kind of doing like movement, and I guess you would call it maybe exercise, but that's just kind of like what you said, what fills my cup and what I enjoy myself with, and the friends that we have and the community that we have here on the Gold Coast, we're all kind of on the same page. And, if we want to hang out, we'll think of an activity to do together.
That's so
But you know
cool.
what? I say all of that, but sometimes as well, like there's nothing better, especially like at the moment we're hitting winter, which is probably nothing like your winters. Like it's still like 20 day. Well, that's Celsius though. You guys use Celsius, right? Okay, great. But sometimes when I come home after like if I've trained in the morning, done a work block, and then I get home, my partner and I just started watching Vampire Diaries. Like all I want to do is just sit on the couch and just binge Vampire Diaries for a little bit. Like as much like whoever's listening that thinks like this person's like just constantly training all the time, like that happens. But then there's definitely the side where like we just lounge about and do nothing as well. So
Yeah.
like we're just
Yeah.
normal people just trying to get it done.
Yeah. And just like keeping afloat, like figuring stuff out as it comes. I want to
Yeah.
congratulate you because you mentioned your fiance. Do you have wedding plans in the coming months, in the coming years, or is that something that you're not
Yeah, I
looking
mean
into right
that's a
now?
good question. We were hoping to get married probably at some point next year, because we my fiance is from Colombia, so we're hoping that we're wanting to get
Uh-huh.
married in Colombia. But yeah, I've got some pretty cool kind of opportunities and stuff coming up at the
Amazing.
pretty soon. So contractually and even work wise, I actually have no idea when I'll be free for the kind of foreseeable future. Uh, so we're kind of just gonna play it by ear.
Yeah.
We might just quickly head to the courthouse and just get married ourselves, anyways, and then it's done, and then we can save some time to actually do it. The main thing is like, I think she's just happy to be engaged. Look, I really, really would love to get married, like maybe next year. Like, I don't want to just be engaged for like 5 years or whatever it is. But no locked in date as of yet. Wedding fund into bikes,
I was just gonna
into
say
buying
that,
new
like the
bikes.
investment, it's not just a quick like, oh, I want to go for a jog and start to do marathon prep. Like it's when you start to dabble into Ironman or even just triathlon, like it's a sport where
It's a slippery slope. It's a
yeah,
slippery slope. But you don't have to go. Like, we went all in. Like, we went crazy. Like, we were just like, you know what? Because if there's one thing about me, is that no matter what I do, even if I'm a complete novice at it, I will look the part. Like, I will. I don't know if it's just like dancing or whatever, where you just like, you got your costume and you feel good. Like, when
you
you do a
feel
number,
slick.
it could be the best number in the world, but then if your costume sucks, you're like, I look like an amateur.
Yeah, no.
So I rocked
I
up to my
suck. I
Ironman.
hate
I was
dance.
wearing a
I'm not good
pro,
at it. Yeah.
exactly. I rocked up to my Ironman. I was wearing a pro race suit. Like, I had everything. Like, people would have seen, like, looked at me going, wow, this guy looks quick. And then they would have seen me swim and just gone, it's just some guy with all the gear and no idea. But
What a poser.
yeah, exactly. But you know what? That's who I am, and I own it. So yeah, I mean, you don't necessarily have to do that. Like, if you just want to kind of be a part of it, you can do it on a bit more of a budget. But even on a budget, like, even a cheap bike, you're looking at like $1,000.
For sure.
So even secondhand. So yeah, it is. But I guess that's part of the experience, right? I sometimes the way I justify it would be like, when I used to go, like, I don't really drink anymore. Well, pretty much, yeah, I don't really drink at all anymore. But when I used to party and stuff when I was younger, like in my early 20s, the amount of money I blew on like just alcohol on a weekend probably buys me the bike. You know what I mean? And because it was every week. But like, at least this is like the way I see it. I'm like, I'm investing in my health and in goals and in things that I'm proud of, as opposed to something that I'm literally just throwing
It's
away.
huge. Like I think that a lot of the times, like I think people go look at even a gym membership or something like that, or a club membership. Like I really want to find a local club to get back into some jiu-jitsu training, and every time I go to look, I'm like, well, that's another expense. Hey, like that's another X amount of dollars. And then I
Yeah,
kind of like, what, I'll just go back to my whatever triathlon, biking, running. But in my head, I'm like, but that's something that will bring you such like liberation, joy, probably another community. Like there's so many other things that come with just that like
hun-
fixed price. I feel like we can't really see the full scope of it. And like you said, you do it with your fiance. So like for you to be able to spend that quality time with her and like to talk about that, like your sessions, how was your training session?
yeah,
Like it's just so much more than just the item that you're buying. Like I
for
think when it
sure.
comes to this type of stuff, it's a lifestyle. Like you're investing in your life, your
Yeah,
happiness, your
exactly.
health. Yeah, you're right. You're right. Um, Okay, I want to kind of taper things off into random fire round, not even fire round crush. I got to stop calling it that. It's more just like random questions to bring some like just some humor, some lightheartedness to the conversation before we wrap things up. Is that okay?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Let's do it.
So first off, what would be this is for some reason my favorite. What's your death row meal?
Steak, mushroom sauce with creamy gnocchi. The gorgonzola sauce gnocchi, and then I just have like my steak with it, and it's like that's my treat myself meal. Yeah.
Okay, amazing. If you were to picture yourself kind of doing like a different life, like if you were to sort of just like rewind the tapes a little bit, is there something that you kind of parallel or different universe you would be doing, whether it be like a National Geographic photographer, something like that?
Yeah. I'd be a historian or a history teacher.
Oh, really?
So I've always loved history and ancient history. Like it's just always fascinated me, and I did it in school. And I actually wanted to be um, a historian when I was younger. But then my parents told me that they would never put food on the table, so I went about a different route.
I can't argue with them because I went my
Yeah,
first year of university, first 2 years of university, I was in history. I was obsessed with Latin American history actually, and I was like, oh, I'll be a prof. And then I was like, reality check. So no,
yeah,
I hear you on
exactly.
that. Okay, what is your sort of ideal day off, I guess? So I used to say, what's your ideal Sunday? But I've now gathered that a lot of the people I talk to are either, athletes, artists, entrepreneurs, and Sundays might not be their day off. So what is that for you?
It's probably a little bit. Probably, you know what? It's probably exactly how I live every weekend. Like I'll probably head out for a bike ride in the morning with my partner, just like a nice, nothing too crazy. We get some coffee on the way, and then come back, we'll make some food at home, and chill out. That's pretty much it. We'll just do a bit of
Yeah.
exercise in the morning, have some coffee. Usually the weather's always good here, so if we can then like go to the beach for a bit, go for a swim, and then always we love going out for dinner. So yeah, hang out with some friends and go out for dinner, or just ourselves, and then get some frozen yogurt. That's usually hits the nail on the head.
Are you a book, movie, podcast, YouTube? Like, what's your sort of source of entertainment, I guess?
Probably more movie and YouTube.
Movie and YouTube? Is there
I'm
something
into
on
all.
YouTube
I've
that
been
you
doing.
like?
I just dabble into a little bit of everything. I've
Yeah.
started audiobooks a bit more, like even when I'm
Oh, yeah.
running and all that,
Nice.
which has been a nice because I used to love reading, but my attention span just isn't there anymore. So audiobooks seem to really help.
No, audiobooks are just because you can also do something as well as doing your 3 hour
Yeah,
bike or
that's
3 hour
true.
run.
Yeah,
Like,
true,
it just
true.
never
I spend a lot of
stops.
time in the car. I spend a lot of time in
Yeah,
the
yeah,
car. So yeah, I guess podcasts as well. Like I guess I've been listening to a few more podcasts. Diary of CEO is like probably my favorite
yeah,
one.
yeah, yeah.
But
Nice.
yeah,
Amazing. Well, honestly, again, thank you so much for coming on, for carving out time into your busy schedule for this. I know some listeners are going to be really excited to just hear from a performer that's out in Australia. And also, I'm selfishly grateful to hear about kind of the fact that you also have a dance background, interested in education, and kind of made a career from that, and then also now triathletes. It's like I said before, you feel like you're kind of this individual soul amongst many random human beings, but we're so connected in more ways than I think
yeah,
we
for
really
sure.
know. So yeah, again, thank you so much. I will tag all your socials in the show notes so that people can follow you. Is that the best way that people can kind of get a look at up to? Okay.
Thanks so much for having me. This was great.
Of course. Okay, take care.
Bye.
That's a wrap on another episode of Leave Average for Joe. Thank you for tuning in each and every week. I am so grateful to have you all along the way. If you enjoyed this podcast, please share it with a friend, a family member, somebody that you think might be inspired or motivated by listening to the show. You can also subscribe to my newsletter by visiting briggsandco.ca. Every Friday, I release this 3-minute read on business, arts, fitness/health, and philosophy. It is a super easy read, a great way to kick off your weekend, just feeling like you've learned something new. You can also follow the show on Instagram. It's Leave Average for Joe. And of course, all of the guests' information will be attached to the show notes. So take a look at that. And please take care of yourselves. Squeeze your loved ones extra tight. Continue to leave average for Joe, y'all.